Ready? All right. Well, good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. I'm Denver Police Chief Ron Thomas, and I'm here with Commander Matt Clark to provide a follow-up briefing, a much more detailed briefing about a critical incident that occurred last Monday evening, February 24th in Paco Sanchez Park. There'll be an opportunity for questions at the end of the presentation. But before I turn it over to Commander Clark, I do want to acknowledge the fact that we very easily could be talking about a death, given the fact that there were individuals running around in our community endangering the community armed with weapons, blatantly firing weapons that they never should have even been able to possess. So, yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Clark. I'm the commander of the Denver Police Department's Major Crimes Division. I appreciate the opportunity to have you here today and provide additional description on the police shooting incident that occurred on Monday, February 24th, 2025, around 10:40 p.m. near Paco Sanchez Park. This is intended to be a follow-up briefing, and it's based upon information that we've gathered after interviewing numerous witnesses, gathering evidence from the scene, and speaking with the involved officer. There may be information I do not have or cannot disclose. We do have a juvenile offender in this case who may face criminal charges, and that can impact some of the information I can release as well. With that being said, I'll jump in. On Monday, February 25th, 2025, at about 10:40 p.m., the Denver Police Department received two separate ShotSpotter alerts indicating multiple gunshots were fired in the 1300 block of Lowell Boulevard. The police department uses the ShotSpotter system, which is a network of acoustic sensors placed around the city to detect and locate gunfire in real time. When a gunshot is fired, the sensors capture the sound, it triangulates its precise location, and it alerts officers within seconds. And this technology allows the police department to be notified of incidents often before 911 calls are received, so that we can save lives, recover evidence, and enhance public safety. As officers were responding to the ShotSpotter alert, a resident in the area called 911, reporting hearing multiple gunshots in the area. The resident further advised that he observed 5 individuals on scooters and bicycles fleeing northbound on Lowell Boulevard. Officers spent time checking the area on Lowell Boulevard, and during their search, they located 3 spent shell casings in the area where the ShotSpotter alert was received. The officers did not locate any victims or obvious property damage from their search of the area. After not immediately finding suspects in the area, the officers focused their search to the area of Paco Sanchez Park, which is located at 1290 Knox Court. This is a large area, Paco Sanchez Park, and it also encompasses a portion of Lakewood Gulch, which generally runs between Federal Boulevard and Knox Court and 10th Avenue and 14th Avenue. At around 11:15, officers observed 4 juvenile males on scooters near the area of 13th Avenue and Knox Court and followed them into the park. An officer recognized one particular individual as a suspect in a recent incident involving shots fired into an occupied dwelling that occurred in southwest Denver in early February. As the juvenile subject went into the park, the single uniformed officer began chasing him on foot. The pursuing officer observed the subject was holding a firearm in his right hand. The officer directed the subject to drop the firearm. The subject did not comply and continued running from the officer. While chasing the subject, the officer described seeing the subject turn his shoulder towards him while still holding the firearm. Fearing that the subject would shoot at the officer or other officers who were in the area, the pursuing officer discharged multiple rounds from his duty handgun. The subject was struck by the officer's gunfire. He continued running a short distance before falling to the ground. Officers approached the subject, secured him, and began providing medical aid. The officers determined the subject was shot in the leg and applied 2 tourniquets to stop the bleeding. The subject was transported to the hospital by ambulance, where he continues to receive treatment for his injuries, and he is expected to recover from those injuries. As part of the crime scene processing, investigators and crime lab technicians documented and recovered a black semi-automatic 9mm Glock handgun that was located in the park along the subject's path as he ran from the officer. The handgun had a red dot optic attached to the top of the slide and a live round in the chamber of the firearm. There was no magazine in the weapon, but investigators located a magazine containing 8 live rounds of 9mm ammunition in the park as well. Investigators determined the Denver police officer fired 10 rounds from his duty handgun. The individual who was shot is being held for attempted homicide related to the prior incident that he was suspected of shooting into an occupied dwelling on February 2nd. This incident occurred in southwest Denver. The district attorney's office continues to evaluate charges related to the incident involving the officer. A second juvenile male who ran from officers was taken into custody in the park. This person can briefly be seen in the officer's, in the body-worn camera of the officer who is pursuing the suspect. Upon searching that second suspect, officers recovered a black semi-automatic Glock 9mm handgun. The firearm had an extended 22-round magazine, which contained 15 rounds of ammunition. This firearm also had an auto sear attached to the back plate. And this is an illegal modification which allows the firearm to function as a fully automatic weapon. That individual is a juvenile male and he's being held on weapons-related offenses. The involved officer in this incident is a uniformed patrol officer assigned to District 4. He's been with the department since 2021 and has not been involved in a prior police shooting incident. The officer was equipped with and had activated his body-worn camera, and it captured his interaction with the individual. And as per department policy, he'll be on a modified assignment as he completes the department's reintegration process. As in all critical incidents, this is being overseen and conducted by the Colorado Bureau of Investigations, Colorado State Patrol, the Homicide Unit for the Police Department, and the Denver DA's office. And it's being, the Office of the Independent Monitor is overseeing the investigation as well. Last thing I would ask is if anybody has any information or video of this incident, if there's a witness that we haven't spoken with, that they contact the Denver Police Department or Metro Denver Crime Stoppers. The one slide that I do have, just as we normally do, showing the weapon that was recovered associated with the specific offender that was being pursued by the officer. Again, a Glock 9mm handgun, no magazine in the magazine well, that was recovered separately. One chambered round and a red dot optic on that firearm. Can answer any questions you may have.
Can you explain the modification of the firearm again?
So on this specific one, the only modification, that looks like there's a weapon-mounted light on it and a red dot sighting optic. This was the one that was associated with the individual that the officer shot at and injured. The other one, the second juvenile, had an auto sear attached to the back, and that makes it function as a fully automatic firearm.
So you just pull and hold the trigger and it just shoots?
Correct,
like
until it's out of
automatic
ammunition.
weapon?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Can you give the specific age of the juvenile who was shot away?
17 years old.
And in the video, you could hear how tense those moments were for that officer. But when we talk about the safety of the community, could there have been a better way to handle it other than just running with the gun, essentially blinded into the park, shooting into a dark park?
So he had, the officer involved had specific acquisition of his target. He had a clear backdrop in his mind at the time, and faced an individual running with a firearm that he felt was going to cause him or somebody else serious bodily injury or death.
So would you characterize this at this point? I don't know if you can take a position. Can you characterize this as a justified shooting by the officer?
You know, I certainly don't want to get in front of the district attorney's decision, but I am comfortable with the actions of the officer. I really do believe that he perceived a significant threat. Obviously, this is a significant threat to our community. Individuals that have already shown a propensity to fire weapons, automatic weapons even, and I think he felt a threat and I think responded appropriately to that threat.
What's his name? The officer's name?
We typically don't share that at this time.
What about how long he was on the force? Or?
Started in 2021, and he's a uniformed patrol officer.
Has he ever been involved in a shooting before?
No, sir.
Do we know what they were shooting at when the shot spotter?
We don't. I don't believe that we found any objects that were struck, any homes, any vehicles that were struck. That's typically what we do when we respond to a shot spotter. We look for shell casings, which are valuable evidence, and we also look for things that may have been damaged by that gunfire. I think it informs the types of reports that we complete, whether it's shooting into an occupied structure or anything like that. We were not able to find anything.
And then you said the officer recognized the juvenile as being involved in that Southwest Denver shooting?
He did. He was a part of the initial investigation that started on February 2nd and had been in contact with investigators throughout. So he was aware that this was the person who they believe was responsible for that incident.
How many times was the juvenile struck?
So that's somewhat of a tough question to answer, only because we need access to medical records. We are aware of at least one strike, and I'm not certain if that was a through and through injury or not. But I know he got struck in the leg.
Again, kind of procedural with, how you said when you react to shot sputters, you look for damage. Do you guys look for if the other shots the officer fired hit anything else?
Oh, certainly, yeah. There was a very detailed investigation of the park and the general vicinity to see where those rounds would have struck.
I think I remember seeing some mobile, like halo cameras close by that park. Is there any plans to put more of those mobile cameras in the park in the future?
Good question. And so, as you probably are aware, this is one of our persistently violent hotspots that have been identified as such at the end of 2023. Coincidentally, this was the only time somebody has been shot in that park in the last year. And so we have done some significant things to improve safety in that community and in that neighborhood. And so we'll have to continue to review to see if there's still need for some of those adaptations.
There's a high number of unlawful discharge of a firearm in West Colfax neighborhood, much higher than pre-pandemic levels. Is that because there's more gunshots or more microphone sensors?
We have not installed any more sensors in quite some time.
We did a story last week on a liquor store, Avondale Liquors.
Correct.
Which the city is working to shut
Mm-hmm.
down. Which is right around the corner from this, where there was also another shooting there last year.
Mm-hmm.
Is that part of the police department's strategy to kind of take a holistic approach to that?
It is. This is really kind of an all of government, all of community kind of approach to addressing challenges within a community, and it was our assessment, and I think even much of the community's assessment that liquor store was contributing to the issues.
Does that include like installing lighting?
It does.
patrol officers,
It does. It includes, I really like to reference it as more of an investment strategy than an enforcement strategy. So certainly there are enforcement efforts by the police department, but it's much more effective and much more sustainable when we are able to install lighting and other infrastructure enhancements, really create activations. There's a number of activations that have occurred within the park that we think enhance safety as well.
Do we know if there was an argument that preceded the original shooting that brought officers out there, or
There's nothing to suggest that that's what happened.
so just kind of messing around maybe?
Quite likely. Well, thank you.